Welcome to episode 4 of Beer with Alan. I'm Alan and I've had over 3,400 different beers since I started tracking back in 2014. I use the app called Untapped to track, so look me up there under Beer with Alan to see the beers that I've tried. Send me a friend request on there if you're interested. This week I talked to Richie Tevlin from Cadet Brewing, and we'll have that interview here in a few minutes. But first, let me update you on the current state of things. My current beer count is 3,453. I was back on track last week with a normal weekend after the previous weekend where my count was low because I went to a big beer festival and really mostly only had tasters, which I don't actually include in my count. I'm still thinking that number 3,500 will happen during my trip to Belgium, which is coming up starting in 2 weeks. The best beer I had last week, I mentioned this one in a video on Friday. It was called Fallen Hero from Forest and Maine in Ambler, Pennsylvania. This was an English barley wine that was aged in bourbon and apple brandy barrels, 12.5% ABV and just delicious. Usually a barrel-aged thing at 12.5% would have the alcohol really strong up front, but this one was really mellow and smooth. It was great on tap. I bought a bottle of it to put away for a while, and I'm guessing it's going to get even better down the line. For my recent good runs, I wanted to highlight one. I did my long run on Sunday on the Horsham Powerline Trail, which is pretty close to where I live. I've run there hundreds of times, but the good part about this one was the fact that while I've struggled on many of my long runs in recent months, this one just felt nice and easy. And that was a really nice change. For a while, I've been cutting off the trail in spots and running through neighborhoods. This time, I just stuck to the trail, and it really paid off for me. It was a much better run than most of the ones that I've had recently, especially for a long, like a 10-mile run like this one was. My stamina's been down a little bit in my running, and I've struggled on these long runs. But this one I felt really good about. For my next marathon plans, I've been kicking this around for a while. I've been talking about my options. I'm starting to think that maybe the Rehoboth Beach Marathon is the way to go. It will only have been 2 years since I last did it, which works against it in my head because I like to do, a variety of races. Of the 16 marathons I've done, the only one I've ever done more than once is the Walt Disney World Marathon, which I've done 3 times, including my very first marathon back in 2013. I haven't repeated one other than that one. And Rehoboth will have only been 2 years earlier, but it's a good race. It's in a great town that I really like. There are a lot of really good breweries right around there that I'd love to visit again. And it's really very easy travel from here. It's just a couple hours drive, as opposed to having to fly somewhere. I do a lot of flying during the year, so there's a little bit of appeal to maybe doing this one as just a driving trip and heading down to Rehoboth. So I'm still deciding. I'd like to talk to some of the breweries in the area and see if I can make some arrangements to do some stuff while I'm there. So we'll see. A decision on that should be coming really soon. In the world of sports, and I am such a big sports fan, I wanted to highlight the thing that many of you are excited about is the World Cup, which starts on Thursday, which is the day that I expect to post this podcast. Now, I have no illusions of the United States going overly deep into this tournament, but we can dream, right? Spain and France appear to be the favorites from what I can tell. I'll be in Paris for the first couple of days of my upcoming trip, and I checked to see if France was playing on those days, but they aren't. Belgium does play on the second day that I'm in Belgium, but as it'll be like 5 a.m. local time for me, I don't think I'm likely to be watching it. So on that upcoming trip, I'll give some details about where I will be, where I'll be at any given time on next week's show. So if you're from France or Belgium, or you'll be visiting those places in late June or early July, and you want to come say hi, you'll want to listen to that episode. I'll give a few details of some places that I intend to go and about when I'll be there. So I'd be very happy to meet some folks if they want to come out and have a beer, say hi, all of that. I always enjoy that. So I have a guest with me today, and I think you're really going to enjoy this. His name is Richie Tevlin, and he's the owner and head brewer of Space Cadet Brewing, a Philadelphia brewery that began in 2024. Hey, Richie, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad to be here. I hopefully my listeners know or will come to know after this that I was on your podcast. I don't know, about a year and a half ago or so now, called the Brewdat podcast. How long have you been doing that podcast?
We started in September. No, I think September 2023. So coming
Okay.
up on 2 years or 3 years. Geez. Uh, um, but it's good. It's we started off doing like biweekly or like once a month, and now it's every week. Drops Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Oh, nice. You have a specific time. That's helpful. I
Yeah.
so far I've been doing these about once a week, but they've been posted at different times, different days. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll get more regular with it as we go along. Um, but my first question for you that I just wanted to kind of start off with this is, when did you know you wanted to be a brewer?
I knew in college, so I'm trying to think about what year it was. 2013. So I, like you, I went to Penn State. We are. But
Yeah.
when I was at Penn State, everybody was very excited about. That was just like the height of craft beer, and I was in business school. All my professors were talking about it, and I knew I wanted to start some sort of business. I always just kind of like fantasized the idea about like a local, small, like family run business. I just
Hmm.
didn't know what I wanted to do. So they introduced me to craft beer. Seemed very exciting. I was enjoying drinking beer at the time. So I figured why not? I was 19 or 20 years old at the time, and I knew that nobody was going to have a leg up on me at that point. I was just kind of like I could do anything. I've always felt like I was kind of behind on my interests, but if I started getting into craft beer, then it's like I wasn't even 21 yet. So
Right. Did you think about doing it there in state college, like brewing there once you were old enough?
I did some home brewing, but it was tough because I was living in like dorms, I'm in a fraternity house, and then like in like a college house. So it was like it was not really the greatest brewing situation. And I reached out to some homebrew clubs, but they were just unresponsive. And then the only breweries in the area at the time were Otto's and Happy
Hmm.
Valley Brewing. Otto's had too many people that were involved, and they just didn't need my help. And then Happy Valley, I think, was under construction or some sort of issue where I didn't get
Hmm.
involved there. But in my summers and winter breaks, I was brewing at I was working at Keystone Homebrew. I was working with a
Hmm.
bunch of home brewers. I worked a little bit at
That was when they were in Montgomeryville, right?
yeah, in the massive store. That was really
Yeah.
nice. And working at Stable 12 in Phoenixville.
Oh, I don't think I realized you worked at Stable 12.
It
And
was
I know those are Penn State guys there too.
Yeah, and I went to college with them as well, or I went
Oh,
high school. I
nice.
mean high school.
Oh,
So
cool.
uh, the owners, one of them, Chris Carbett, his younger brother Ben Carbett. I was good friends with him in high school and college, and then lived with him shortly after college. So I worked there a little bit over that time.
Nice. I like Stable 12. Yeah, that's cool. There are a few more breweries, obviously, up there in State College now. Not a ton still, but there are some more. There's some good ones. You know, I guess I've been to most of them in the area.
What's the one downtown?
Anti-Fragile.
Anti-fragile. I hear so much about that one, and it's right downtown, which is really cool. Also,
Yeah, it's right on Calder Way. It's I made a video there, one of my milestone videos. I think it was like 3,100 or something like that.
cool.
Yeah, they were really nice guys, and their beer was great. I was really impressed with just their whole setup, and they're brewing in like a really tiny little space, but they're making really really good beer.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that they're pretty involved in the brewing community as well up there because I know there's the beer fest, which I think that they run or they're
Hmm.
part of,
Yeah,
um, like in the stadium. So at some point, I
yeah.
haven't been up to State College in 6 years. Like,
Oh no,
no.
we get up at least for the opening football game every year. So you know, occasionally to more than one game, but at least always that one.
I'll be up
Um,
this year. I was in the National Guard in college, and like 2 years after, or 3 years after, so I was literally up there every single month, and
okay.
it was just for 7 straight years. Basically, I hadn't left. It felt like so. It's I've only been up a couple times since then.
So yeah, so you took a break after
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So tell us about Space Cadet Brewing and how you got started with this being really just your own gig.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of like the brief history of my background. So graduated Penn State and went to brewing school in through the American Brewers Guild in Vermont. I worked at Flying Dog Brewery in Maryland
Mm,
for 2 years. Then I moved back. I'm from the Philadelphia area, the suburbs. So then I moved back home. Started working at Victory for a year and a half, just in their cellar. Got a job as the head brewer at Philadelphia Brewing and moved into the city. Worked there for exactly 1 year, and then got a job back at Victory as their head brewer to then open up their Philadelphia tap room in March of 2020. So that happened. Obviously, they weren't going to open up a bar in 2020, so they put
right.
me on their just to like kind of entertain me. They put me on their innovation team, so I was helping writing the recipes, kind of developing brands for them, and that's really where I learned how to like write recipes and kind of a lot of what I'm doing now was during that time. And then we opened up the tap room, worked there for 2 years, and then I left in uh, October. It was actually the same month that we started the Brew Dat podcast was the same month that I left Victory, and I also met my wife the same month. So
Oh wow,
in a
lots of
three
changes in your life.
in a 3 week span, it was like kind of crazy. And
Definitely.
yeah, so kind of decided to do all of life in a matter of 1 month, and
Right.
quit Victory in like I said September October 2023, and then spent kind of like 4 to 5 months figuring out how I was going to attack opening up a brewery, um, and then kind of doing what I'm doing now. So um, I'll get kind of. You want me to explain kind of what Space Cadet Brewing is and how it
Sure.
works?
Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So I'm currently contract brewing, which means I have somebody else making my beer for me. And what I do is we call ourselves a single batch brewery. So every month and a half, we do eight releases a year. We'll make a batch of beer. We'll advertise how much beer is in the market, where to get it at, and then the beer's not coming back. So it hits the market, sells out in a couple weeks. We take a couple weeks off. Next month, we'll make another beer. So um, it was really I really kind of got forced into doing it this way because uh, opening up a brewery costs a lot of money, and we're kind of like bootstrapping the whole thing. So I needed to find a creative way to contract brew and kind of like keep something exciting and keep something fresh, without just like making like a beer in the sea of just random IPAs and just put it out there. So I'm trying to keep the brand exciting and fun and do new stuff all the time, even though I'm contract brewing. So yeah, so I have somebody else making my beer for me, and actually the people that are making my beer, uh, it's out of the old Workhorse Brewing in King of Prussia, which is now Bald Birds.
Okay. Yeah. Bald Birds bought that. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so James is the head of production over there. James was my manager twice at Victory. He hired me twice. He was my direct supervisor. Now he's in charge of the production over there. So it's very
Oh,
easy.
cool.
We speak the same language, so we say as when we're brewing beer. So
I'm
it makes
sure
things
that
very
makes
easy.
it easy.
Yeah,
I know I had I had your Pilsner. I can't remember the name of the beer. I should remember it, but
that was flight school. No, flight school. Yes.
I was going to say that sounds right. I
Yeah.
know we had a funny exchange when I was on your podcast when when I talked about the fact that people give me a hard time about not liking Pilsners, and you were like, oh, I brought a Pilsner for you. But as it turns out, I liked it. And I've gotten much better with Pilsners since then. What I generally discovered is that there are what I think of in my head as a Pilsner and what I taste as a Pilsner are not exactly the same thing, particularly with the Czech or Bohemian style Pilsners,
Yeah,
which it turns out I quite like those.
yeah,
So, yeah, some of the German style ones I don't like quite as much. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. And I think people have in the last 3 years have definitely gotten way better at making not just pilsners, but like German style lagers, German and Czech style lagers. So I
mm,
think that also just kind of like maybe the beer that you're having now is just probably way better than what you're used to.
yeah, well, it might be. Like I said, your Pilsner was really good. I live not far from Human Robot in Jenkintown, and
Yeah,
they make some fantastic stuff there. The Czech styles that they make, I think, are great. So,
yeah.
um, yeah. So you're doing the contract brewing, and you're still it's one new beer every month and a half, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, so we do 8 releases a year. So we'll try to do like two in the spring. Just don't even worry about dry January, and then three in the summer, and then three in the fall. And kind of like the last one in the fall, we'll put out like in December, mid December, to kind of like let that go of the holidays, and then through January.
Okay. Are you looking into like a physical space yet, or is that still a ways off?
We're trying to find a spot right now. So it's been the bane of my existence for the last 2 years. So like kind of like the 5 year plan when I got started doing it was start contract brewing, create the brand, and then raise money and open up a tap room. Because like again, my whole thing is that like I didn't have money. I knew how to do it, but I didn't have money. So raise money. And I thought then I would open up a spot. I've never raised money before, so I basically spent a year and a half going through that process. And, I don't want to close the door on like taking money from people, but like Space Cadet is making money now. And I think I have a path towards like doing it on my own, which is, I think, in the long run better. Um,
Sure.
so now it's really just finding the right space. So I have the food partner, which I'm not ready to announce yet, but
Okay.
kind of doing like what most craft breweries now, where they open up a tap room, have somebody else kind of manage their kitchen for them, and
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
I see a
wins.
lot of that. I see sometimes there's food trucks and stuff. Sometimes they like sort of bring an in-house food truck. Some of the places
Yeah,
do it. Yeah,
yeah.
that kind of thing. Yeah, that's exciting. I look forward to seeing that happen for you. Do you think that once you have your own space and you're will you keep the sort of periodic short small batch brewing
The
going on or
I will always do that with the single batch releases because that is really like the backbone of my brand. So Space Cadet, kind of to go back on that, the single batch beers. But then there's also this whole component that Space Cadet revolves, our branding revolves around a mascot, this character Space Cadet. That then all of our labels are single panel comics of this little astronaut doing different things. It really started off as like him kind of training to go to space, but he's not actually going to space. It's just a space cadet. He's imagining it, but when you line up all the cans, kind of creates like this general storyline of space cadet like going on an adventure, with the idea that like if you follow along our brewery, the brand feels alive because it's always changing, and then the space cadet character is kind of like a brand that's more alive than just like a name and a logo. So we the single batch beers will always be there to keep the brand backbone alive as far as like this is space cadet. Our brand is like alive. We're always trying to change and do different things. At some point, though, so opening up this brewery has been a learning process. I knew a lot about making beer. I really didn't know anything about selling beer. So, I am selling
okay.
beer, but, people do sell beer. You see brews open up in this kind of formulaic way for a reason.
Hmm.
I think it's fun what I'm doing. I don't think that I can turn into the next Victory or Allagash making single batch beers. It's just it's too kind of chaotic. So it's great, and I do have a lot of runway to grow. But at some point, it's going to limit me. So at some point, I will need to bring in a flagship brand. Uh, Ideally, that comes in after we do the tap room, but it really could come in before that. We just have to kind of figure out a way to like kind of trial run it, test run it, and kind of put out something that um, really kind of stands out. Like I don't want to just have these single batch beers and then just make like a basic standard IPA to put out, because that's what I was trying to avoid. I did not want to then just follow the blueprint that everybody else was doing. So
Sure.
I would love to come up with something unique and even outside of the bounds of just beer. If I can come up with something that is, hard teas and other RTDs are so popular right now. You
Mhm.
can't mix, a distilled spirit and a beer. But if I can come up with some creative way to do something, I think that would be fun. Like Long Drink just sold for like $400 million, and as much as it's just a kind of a mixed RTD, they did kind of find a different angle. So if I
Yeah.
can kind of find a different angle, whether that's beer or some beer alternative that is still kind of a craft beer esque beer, that would be the true goal.
Okay. Well, that sounds interesting. And yeah, I think the idea of not, you said ideally you would come up with your sort of core stuff once you already had the tap room. And I think having the, customer feedback right in front of you every day would help toward that too, because you'd also see what moves and what moves, not just what moves sales wise, but what moves people, like what people are enthusiastic about and all that. Like if each of your batches, small batch, it sells out, you move on to the next one, you don't really know what was more popular than the next because you sold all of it each time, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it would be ideal to have the tap room open and then put out the flagship beer, because, like we say, these small batch beers that I'm making, but I'm making 90 barrels at a time, so that's a lot of beer, especially with like kind of no test. So the flagship beers, like I'm putting my flag in the ground, like this is going to be my beer forever, without really doing like even like a small test on it. So if I don't if I don't open up the tap room first, and if I put out a flagship beer before then, I'm gonna need to figure out like an angle to like make a smaller batch or do some trial run with some beer without a tap room. Like without a packaging. Whether that's just if I make like some draft only beer for a specific account and just run it there or something. Yeah, I don't want to then like plant my flag in the ground saying like this is my beer forever without even
Right.
tried it first.
Right. Especially you got the space cadet guy planting his flag on the moon. It really is there forever, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Without even waving, it just
Yeah,
stands still.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so, I mean, I recognize the challenges that you're talking about, and it's interesting to think about how this stuff gets started. What's like, what's been the best part of this process so far?
I mean, the network of people I know. Doing the podcast, I've met so many people. I mean, we've had 115, 120 guests so far. So, there's not many people that get to sit down and have a half hour conversation with the governor. That's kind of crazy. Or you.
Yeah.
I mean, like the response we got after your episode was crazy. But
Oh, well, awesome.
and look at us now. And now we're doing this, and we're still in communication. But it's the podcast was cool. But I've met so many people since I started Space Cadet, just in the community. Like basically every bar in Philly, I've talked to the manager there, and basically like all of southeastern PA. Like they've at least like heard my name, or like I've tried to sell them my beer. So it's it's been cool getting to be out there and talking to everybody. Like when you're a production brewer, it gets kind of depressing at some points. Like really, like we call when you're working in the cellar, you call yourself a cellar dweller. You're kind of like a cellar troll. It's because a lot of times you're working like overnight shifts, weekends, and like you're not really in normal everyday life, and you can kind of lose touch with like why you even got into craft beer in the first place. Like, yeah, it's great to make beer, it's something that you love, and like work with your hands, and I feel proud about it. But if you're not talking to the customers or selling beer to people, a lot of the conversations, which like I didn't like when I was in production, was like if sales go down, you're blaming the customers. If something happens, like you're like, well, they just don't understand. But when I'm out giving my beer to people and talking to them about my beer every day while they're drinking it is really very rewarding, getting the feedback,
Sure.
and it's in
Yeah, that makes
person.
sense.
It's not like, I know you people like hate on you on the internet. Like I get hate too, but in person, no one says anything mean to you. So it's great, like getting out there and, give like kind of like giving people beer, talking about it, and like just the reception you get is really rewarding.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely like being in front of people, having conversations. I'm sure there are people working in the cellars, as you're saying, who want to be there, who don't really want
Yeah,
to deal with the people and all of that. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I like that. I'm not making the beer, but so people hate on me on the internet. When you put yourself on the internet, you're going to get some negativity.
It's inevitable, but
Yeah, but it's almost all positive. It
yes,
really
yeah,
is. So
yeah.
it's easy to ignore the negatives.
How was it at the Firestone Walker thing? Like talk, I know you got to talk to so many people out there, and I'm sure it's the same thing. Like when I go to beer fest or I'm talking to people, just the connections that you make in person are kind of
Yeah,
very
I
cool.
love that.
Yeah,
It's really good. Yeah, it's funny. I think, I'm doing, I'm in the wrong business maybe because, I go to those things and I immediately sort of sit down. I want to drink the beer. I want to focus on the beer. I'm in my own head.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
was at the event the first day with just the brewers and the sponsors and the media and all of that kind of thing. And I'm just sitting there doing my own thing at my own table, not really talking to anybody. And then at some point, I could hear my wife in my head telling me, "Get up and go talk to people. Like you know, that's what you need to do. That's what you're there for. It's not just to drink the
yeah,
beer." So I actually literally got up, walked over, and said, "My wife tells me that I need to be more social." So,
yeah,
and then I met a bunch of nice people and had some nice conversations. And at the actual festival, my daughter was with me, and she also she's automatically just going to walk up and start having a conversation with anybody that she comes across. So
yeah.
uh, that helped prompt me as well.
Definitely. We this past week was the busiest week we've had since we launched. So my wife is here. We did six straight days of events, of tastings,
Oh
doing
wow.
stuff, and it like culminated this past Sunday. There was like a pool party, like the coolest pool party in Philadelphia, and we went. I went dressed as an astronaut. She was dressed as an alien, and it is very embarrassing to like go out and do something like that, just in a pool full of like 300 people that like work out way more than I do, you know, in like bikinis and like, bathing suits, and like I'm just there kind of acting like an idiot, I guess. But that's kind of what it is. But it's like in my head, I'm thinking like I don't want to do this, but when you actually go out and do it and you put yourself out there, it does feel kind of rewarding because you are getting this. It is helping the brand, and it's like if you take a step back, like, all right, does me being self conscious about this help the brand? Like if I think, I mean, we talked before. I'm having the Wake Up Worldwide Stout from Sam Adams. When I was getting into craft beer, I was obsessed with uh, Sam Calagione and Dogfish Head. Like that was kind of one of the big reasons why I got into craft beer. And him, Garrett Oliver, like when they go into public settings, like they are the center of attention. They put themselves out there. They're
Sure.
not afraid to kind of like throw themselves on the floor and like kind of like teach people about beer and kind of like be heard. And I have to constantly be reminding myself, and I'm getting much better at it as far as not sitting at the bar, not talking to anybody. Like that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me. But as much as it might be like comfortable in the moment, like it has gotten much easier the more and more I put myself out there.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you're there. It's one thing. You said you felt like an idiot. I'm sure you weren't acting like an idiot. You were just
I mean, I was like sober. I was like trying to get the brand going, but
right.
It's
And people will remember that, you know.
yes,
Now,
yes,
they'll if you really were acting like an idiot, they'll remember that too, and not in a positive way. But I'm
yes,
sure that it
yes,
was, you know, that it was the positive sort of interaction and the positive
definitely,
sort of impression
definitely.
that you wanted to
And
leave.
that's the thing. It's like
Yeah,
always knowing that you are representing your brand, but like just not letting your self consciousness or like like your kind of your inner thoughts like stop you from moving your brand forward. Um,
yeah. I think things all the time where like, you know, that I need to be aware of what I say and how I act in public because I get recognized a lot,
yeah,
and like I think sometimes I'm generally a pretty even keeled person and all of that, but like except when I'm driving, and I'm just a lunatic when I'm driving, and everything makes me angry, and I think to myself sometimes, one of these times I'm going to be yelling at somebody in my car, and they're going to recognize me, and then I'm going to have a problem.
yeah,
So like maybe I should ease up on that a little
yeah.
bit.
Road rage with Ellen.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fun, and so yeah, so I forced myself to talk to some people, and it got easier and easier. And then at the festival itself, like luckily people make it a little easier for me if they know me, they come up
Yeah,
to me and start talking. So then it's a little easier for me to talk, you know, just have a
definitely. It's like
conversation with
compounding.
people.
It's like the more you go out there, the more you
Yeah.
try it, then everything just becomes easier. But that's really been the most rewarding part of it, and it's been the most. There's lots of challenging parts, but just really kind of becoming the spokesperson for the brand was really something that I kind of had to learn how to do.
Well, that's cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that that it's, you know, that it's heading in the right direction for you,
Yeah,
and I think this is all going to work out. You know, again, it all comes down to the most core part of it, right? Which is making good beer.
yes,
If you
definitely.
make good beer, or you know, or actually the opposite, if you don't make good beer, I don't think it matters how good the rest of it is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, you know, you've got the first part down. That's
Thank
good.
you, thank you.
um, I got to ask you since you brought it up, who got more listens and views, me or the governor?
You, the governor,
All right.
by far, the governor, to be honest, had one of the least listened to ones, which it was
Really?
something that like I'll never forget because it was just like, I mean, just talking to him was like kind of crazy. Like he went right from talking to us to then he flew straight to Ukraine and was hanging out with Zelensky the rest of the day. I'm like, why am I
Wow.
on this person's schedule? But
That's funny.
um, yeah,
He grew up in my neighborhood.
oh really?
Yeah, I
That's
didn't. I mean, I didn't live here
yeah.
then, but yeah, he did.
That's very cool. Yeah, that was a very interesting thing. But you are still the most listened to episode that we have.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it was, and that's so you specifically, but a lot of the guests come on, and like I didn't. It's nice to realize kind of like how connected the craft beer scene is because like an episode will come out and people will just reach out to us and be like, I knew this person, like I had no idea that this person did this or that you knew them. Like, how do you get connected to them? So it's really been fun, building our kind of web of connections and kind of learning more about the overall beer scene and history, craft beer history in Philadelphia has been the most fun part for me.
Yeah, it's great. And anytime I'm traveling somewhere and I tell people, you know, that I'm from Philadelphia, um, they immediately start talking about, you know, what they know about Philadelphia beer. And
Yeah,
Philadelphia has such great reputation, both as a
definitely,
beer making city and as a beer drinking city. Um,
definitely,
you know, and, you know, people know Philly Beer Week and all of those kind of stuff. Like it always gets a very positive response.
definitely, definitely.
So, what is I wanted? I have a couple of questions that I just want to run by you. They're not specifically about your beer; they're just kind of beer questions in general, and I'm curious to hear your answers to them.
Yeah.
So, what's your go-to beer? I guess that would be an easy one to start with.
So right now it's my beer. They say like don't get high off your own supply, but right now I've just leaking out my own beer out of my house just like free samples. So it's just kind of available all the time. Right now, my go to is I really like the the dry hop pilsners, a lot like the lager beers that are heavily hopped. I really do love. I'm a hop head.
Okay.
So we talked about pilsners before, but like some like dry hop pilsners. Then even talked about other Human Robot before. Human Robot
Mhm.
made some. What was it? They called it like an East Coast Pilsner, which is really just kind of like a dry hop Pilsner.
Mhm.
And that the Pilsner I gave you, that it was like a dry hop New Zealand Pilsner. And
Right.
I really
Yeah.
liked those. They're almost like an IPA that's a little bit more drinkable, and kind of just have like a little bit smoother body, but like still have like some super fresh hop character to it.
Great. All right. So in the bigger picture, what is your favorite beer made by someone else? Just your favorite beer.
I had this beer from New Glarus that was like a raspberry sour, barrel aged raspberry sour beer from them.
Okay.
I love everything New Glarus makes. I think that they're just like a really solid brewery. But they made some, I forget what it's called. But they even had like the number on it, like, this is number whatever bottle out of whatever
Okay.
batch it was. But I remember drinking that and thinking to myself, like, this is probably the best beer I've ever had. That, and then we did the Tom Peters episode from Monks for the
Sure.
podcast. That episode was crazy. He brought in like $1,000 worth of beer, of just like beer from Cantillon with his name on it. It literally had like a hand drawn picture of like Gene Van Voy of him. It was crazy. But he brought in a 25-year-old uh, barrel aged smoked stout that tasted like mole and tobacco, and it was that. I remember
Interesting.
Evan and I drank that, and we're like, this might be the best beer I've ever had too. And we went back to Monks a couple months later, and we had a younger version that was like only 5 years old, and it was
Hmm.
nothing like it. Like, I honestly, I didn't like it
Oh,
that much.
interesting.
It really took like those extra 20 years, and it turned into something crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. I made a video the other day about aging beer, just
Yeah,
and you can only say so much in a 1 minute video. But I I've got a room right next to me where I'm sitting here that I've got a whole bunch of beer in, and none of it's older than 5 years or so because I haven't been trying to do this part that
yeah,
long. Um, and but I find it really interesting to try to kind of see what age does to some of these beers. Sometimes it's not so good, but with some of them, it can be fantastic. My favorite beer being Saint Bernardus Apt 12.
yeah,
I love that, and I had a 1.5 liter bottle of it,
yeah.
2012, that I aged for 9 years,
Wow.
and then during the back half of COVID, we were over at a friend's house. I took that bottle there to share it with them, and it was just spectacular.
That's
It's
cool. So
really
I see
fantastic.
the Utopias behind you.
Oh
Are,
yeah.
are you aging any of that?
Well, so there's two of them there. One's a
Yeah.
2023 and one's a 2025. The 2023 is almost empty.
Okay. All right.
But the 2025, I'm trying to like keep the rest of it around for a while and
Cool.
see, hopefully long enough to get the 2027 and then can drink them side by side a little bit. And
That's very cool.
yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting beer. It's really not like anything else that I've tasted beer wise.
That's what I've heard. I haven't had a chance to try it, but it's definitely on my top of my list of something I need to try.
Yeah, it's very cool. So, of all the countries in the world, we've talked about a few countries. We talked about Germany and Czech Republic, and you were just talking about New Zealand as far as the hops and all of that.
Yeah.
What's your favorite beer country?
Um, I like. I mean, I really do love New Zealand hops. So
Hmm.
I really like the New Zealand beers. Um, I like German beers. I like the Japanese rice lagers are nice, but they're pretty, I think, basic. And I know there's probably a lot of beer people out there that are like, you're not understanding like the nuance of rice lagers, but I really like them. I just think that it's just kind of a limit to like how deep you can go into them.
Hmm.
Um, I love Belgian beers. I'm not a huge fan of English beers,
Okay.
which I know that they're getting pretty popular. I know like March Mildness is really popular these days.
It
There's
is.
like
I'm a
Oyster
huge fan of
Maine.
English beer.
Yeah, Force and Main
Yeah,
Yards, and we have great English beer in Philadelphia, but it never really struck me. But I I, I think that at some point, Belgian beers will make a renaissance in kind of craft beer because I talk about it on our podcast a lot that craft beer is really like if you just drop the word craft, it's just the premium beer segment. So like
sure.
it has to be like more valuable beer. So hops is like really how the industry has built itself on by adding value into the beer. But I
Hmm.
think Belgian beers with like all the crazy yeast strains and flavors and different beer styles, I think that really Belgian beers are kind of a forgotten style. And really 10 years ago they were so popular, and nowadays you
Yeah.
never really see them. And I think at some point they'll come around, and some cool new little hype brewery will start making cool Belgian beers again.
Well, I'm doing my part in talking about Belgian beer because it that's definitely my favorite beer country.
Yeah,
I will be headed there 2 weeks from today
very
for
jealous.
the first time, and I'm super excited for that.
That's
But
cool.
Belgian beer is why I love beer. Like that's what like I liked beer. I looked for interesting beer. I always did. When I discovered Belgian beer, that's when I fell in love with beer. Like that
Yeah.
really, yeah.
And it
So
really, I think it created the craft beer movement because it was Anchor Steam was there making like small batch beer, but Michael Jackson really like came in and like defined the beer styles, and that really came from the Belgian beers, like him kind of rediscovering those and defining them. So I think really the Belgian beers have they have the right to call themselves kind of like the start of the craft beer movement.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense to me. And you talk about we talked about Philadelphia being a great place for it, and you mentioned Tom Peters from Monks. Like he Monks is great for Belgian beer,
Yeah,
and I think there's more of a Belgian beer presence in Philadelphia because of Monks.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's great to have that right here.
So at CBC is the Craft Brewers Conference. That's like the big trade organization, the trade
Hmm.
conference for
Yeah, it
craft
was
beer.
just recently here in Philadelphia, right?
Yep. So we were at Evan and I went to Monks after some podcasts that we did there, and at sitting at one of the tables was Garrett Oliver, Vinny and Natalie from Russian River,
Yeah.
and someone else that I don't recognize. And then Tom was giving them like a personal beer tasting dinner. And there was like a space around. Everybody was giving them. It was packed, but everyone was giving them some space because they were like beer celebrities. And I was looking at them. And I was like, "This is like the craft beer version of like a rapper, or like a pro athlete at like a club popping bottles."
That's funny. Yeah, I saw. So I know Vinny was at the Firestone Walker Fest, and I saw him in the
Yeah,
Russian River booth. And I don't know him, but I was hoping that I would get a chance to go up and meet him. And then the timing didn't work out, and I never did get back to talk to him. But I do love
yeah,
Russian River beer, and that's another one. Like we get it here in Philadelphia because of Tom from Monks. Like
definitely. Yeah,
so that's. He's really had a big impact on beer in this area.
yeah. We're a little spoiled here in Philadelphia. We got a lot of great beer.
So outside of Pennsylvania, like what's your favorite beer state in the United States?
Vermont. Every beer I've had in Vermont is amazing. I always liked the New York craft beer scene. I think just New York is just like such like a I mean, it's kind of like the center of the U.S. It's like just like the center of commerce and everything. And I think that there's just
Mm,
like so much pressure and money and kind of concentration of people there that I think that if you're going to be successful there, I mean, I'm not saying anything crazy, but if you're going to be successful here, you really have to make some great stuff. And
yeah,
I'm always kind of like blown away when I go up and visit the breweries up there. So like the small breweries that are in Brooklyn are really great.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And both Vermont and New York, I think they have great beer scenes. I think New York, for some reason, gets overlooked a little bit as far as just not the breweries from there, because the breweries themselves have great reputations. Certainly, some of
Yeah,
them do. The other half and Grimm and some of those
yeah.
places. In Brooklyn Brewery's been around for a long time. I love what they do. Um, Vermont though gets has a big reputation for such a small state. I did a whole series of videos over the past year, one a week, of talking about a different state and just kind of um, like whatever the top rated beer was from that state.
Yeah,
And usually you would think that population would have something to do with the response I would get, how many views a video would get, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
it really kind of tends to move toward the states that people know of for beer, because Vermont, as tiny as they are, was right up at the top of
They're proud of it. They make great
yeah,
beer and they know it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. You mentioned earlier. I was thinking I wasn't sure if you were going to say Wisconsin because you talked about New Glarus, and they're funny because I still have had no beer from them. I get asked about them all the time, and so I looked into it way back when people first kept asking me about it, and I
Yeah,
discovered that they don't sell outside of Wisconsin, and
yeah.
I have not yet set foot in Wisconsin. I've never been in the state, so so I haven't had any of their beer, but I've heard it's good.
If I ever go there, I'll get some spotted cow for you. But it's all their beer is amazing, and I think that the fact that they decided to stay, they sell I think 400,000 barrels a year, and Wisconsin is like the 10th least populated state. It's like an unbelievable amount of beer that they sell. Just people, there's not a lot to do out there, so it's just like a lot of sitting around drinking, and they have like these supper clubs out there where it's just you go down and it's basically like a home cooked meal, but you just strap on the feed bags and you just drink a lot of beer and eat a lot of food.
Well, I mean, sounds like there are worse things in life than
There
that
are
whole
worse
setup.
things in life.
Are you a sports fan at all?
I am. I love football. Obviously, a huge Penn State football fan. Also, love wrestling. Like Penn State, I wrestled in high school. Penn State is
Okay.
obviously amazing at wrestling, so it's easy to be a Penn State wrestling fan.
Seems like they are the most dominant intercollegiate athletics program for a single sport that I can think of. The wrestling team at Penn State, they just win every year.
It's
Um,
unbelievable, and it's
yeah,
I'm like always afraid at some point like it can't be this good. Like at some point, like it's gonna have to be like a Lance Armstrong situation or something. But it's like Kale Sanderson is just a genius. There's something
yeah.
about that he's doing up
I
there.
think as long as he's there, his coaching combined with his recruiting, like
Yeah,
it's a sort of a self perpetuating thing at this point. They get the best wrestlers because they're the best program, and
yeah,
um, it's and the best guys want to go there because they think they can be successful, which they clearly can be. It's pretty remarkable, and
definitely,
really, actually, if you look back just a couple of years, and they're still good, but not quite at that level. You look at Penn State women's volleyball for years,
definitely.
which was absolutely dominant. Russ Rose retired, so then that changes things a bit. But
They were also
uh,
really good at fencing. They were like the national champions for fencing for like many years when I was in college. And I remember sitting in some classes and like you'd have to like raise your hand, like say interesting facts about you. Just like some random little dude next to me just like raised his hand. He's like, I'm a two-time national champion. I'm like, all right. Didn't strike me as an athlete, but I guess you're pretty talented.
yeah, no, hey, that's awesome. You can be that good at anything. It's
Exactly.
you deserve my respect.
Definitely.
Um, so you said you're a Penn State football fan. Are you an NFL fan?
I am. Uh, I don't want to talk.
Well,
I'm
I'm wearing my Eagles hat right now. I'm guessing I'm not getting an Eagles answer here.
So I like the Eagles. This is I've been dealing with this my whole life. My dad is from North Jersey, so I grew up as an Eagles fan
You're a Giants fan.
and a Giants fan. And everyone's like, you can't be a fan of the Eagles and the Giants, and I understand that I can't. They're in the same division, but I like them both. I don't know how else to like. It's not like I'm lying to you. I wish I was a fan of one or the other, but when I watch them, I like them both. So
All right, so tell me. So we got Penn State, we got the Giants, we got the Eagles. When Saquon Barkley went from the Giants to the Eagles, were you happy or were you sad?
I was happy for Saquon.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was certainly in a better situation coming
definitely,
here than he was with the Giants.
definitely,
Um,
definitely.
Other sports, baseball, soccer.
Unfortunately, I'm a Yankees fan, but I
Okay.
do love the Sixers. I like the Flyers, and I do not watch soccer, but I um, as many other people, I for the World Cup, I will get super into it. So
Yeah.
uh, last night before we went to bed, I was watching. I put on YouTube, and Monica's like saw me watching soccer. I'm like, there's a 20-minute long YouTube video of like catch for people like me that don't watch any soccer. Like, here's your catch up about the teams to watch and the players to watch. So you don't sound like an idiot at the bar, you know, when you're watching the World Cup games. But I'm really excited for it. I love the Olympics. The World Cup is almost, I think, more exciting because it's just one sport and kind of so many people are into it. And
Yeah.
also the fact that it's in, Philly and, North America this year is
And we've
awesome.
got five players on the U.S. men's national team that are from this area.
Yeah, I didn't real like my friends played soccer in high school and they always told me that like, we had great soccer here and I'm just like, whatever. Just tell me that. But I think that there actually is like good youth soccer around here, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one last question for you.
All right.
What's the next beer you're making?
So the next beer I'm making is a West Coast IPA with don't quote me on the hops. It's all C hops, so it's I think Cascade, Centennial, Chinook,
Okay.
6.4%. And when I make West Coast IPAs, I love using Vienna. I think Vienna malt is like uh, had some character. Like I don't like the caramel malts. I like just a little bit of sweetness. I think the Vienna has like a little bit of honey character to it, a little bit of
Hmm.
sweetness, cracker notes to it, and then just really let those like pine resin notes shine. So nice balanced bitterness. Not too bitter, but it does have some bitterness to kind of like let you know the hops are there. That should be coming out the week after July 4th, um, and it's like a Fishtown themed thing. It's called Subway Surfer, and it has like
Okay.
a space cadet riding the L train through Fishtown.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll definitely have to look for that. And for those of you out there listening, and if you're in the Philadelphia area, make sure you find this beer. I think West Coast IPAs are growing on me a little bit. I've liked them, and then I went away from them for a while. I just had a really good one the other day that came from the festival out in California.
I think Pilsners and West Coast IPAs are pretty similar, and just like the slight bitterness. I don't like the West Coast IPAs that are too bitter, but just like 40 to 50 IBUs, they're like a little bit of bitterness. That's how I kind of like. I like my West Coast IPAs and my Pilsners to kind of like be just a little bit apart from each other. But
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Richie, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing the next steps for Space Cadet Brewing.
thank you, and I'll keep following along you. I'm always excited for more Allen content, but always a pleasure sitting down with you, and hopefully we see each other soon in real life soon.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye. Okay, so thanks to Richie for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate that. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review or a comment. That will all help us get this thing to take off. I appreciate you all being here. Come back for the next one. And in the meantime, watch my videos each day on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or Facebook. Cheers.